in a season that hasn't been so fun to watch. You know who's always fun to watch? That's right. It's Corey freaking Seager.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the World Series champion Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan covering this team for 11 seasons, including all 6 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into Corey Seager's greatness, an actual rehab start date for Jacob deGrom, and someone writing about Leody Taveras being the Rangers' biggest question? This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Now, the Rangers won last night's game against the Pirates 4-3, thanks to, of course, the grace, the majesty, the beauty of Corey Seager absolutely obliterating some baseballs. I mean, he really got a hold of them last night. A couple of home runs, 4 RBIs for him, including the first home run that went 449 freaking feet. I mean, he has just been absolutely marvelous this year. I mean, just as good as the Rangers ever anticipated. I mean, outside of that tough first month, and, well, June wasn't great for him either. He has still stepped up and been absolutely fantastic at every single bit what the Rangers were hoping for. An all-star this season, now an all-star every single year in Texas. He now has more all-star appearances in the American League than he does in the National League, and maybe by the end of this season, probably not by the end of the season, but actually, I mean, who knows with the kind of pace that he's on, he might have more home runs at the end of 3 years in Texas than he did in 7 seasons with the Dodgers. I mean, the home run tear that he has been on with Texas, his career high for home runs in a season was, before he signed with Texas, was back in 2016. As a 22-year-old rookie with the Dodgers, he hit 26 home runs, finished 3rd in MVP voting, was an All-Star, a Silver Slugger, won NL Rookie of the Year, and the closest he got to that was the next season, 22 home runs. And those were the only times before he signed with Texas that he hit 20 or more home runs in a season. Now, a lot of that was due to injuries. I mean, he only played 26 games back in 2018. He only played 134 games back in 2019. 2020, well, that was a shortened season. He hit 15 bombs in 52 games out of the 60. That year, maybe he would have stayed healthy that full year, and then only 16 bombs in 95 games in the year before he signed with Texas. And he just hadn't stayed healthy, and so far in Texas, he pretty much has. And also, he just absolutely loves hitting at Globe Life Field. I mean, set a career high with 33 home runs in the massively disappointing first season that he had, that, oh, by the way, was, a 3.8 Baseball Reference WAR season. Then he comes back and he ties it again the next year in nearly 30 fewer games, actually 32 fewer games. And then this year, he might surpass it. I mean, right now he's at 28 home runs on the season in 112 games. The Rangers have about 40 games left or so at this point, give or take, maybe 45 games left. I don't think he'll play in all of them, but setting a new career high in home runs is absolutely on the table, and he has just been a home run mashing machine in the second half. I mean, this guy is just everything the Rangers expected in 29 second half games. He's got 10 home runs. 10 home runs in 29 games. This is not a guy who is known for his power. He is known for his doubles and, being an overall complete, pretty solid hitter. But his numbers in Texas have been better than they were in LA. I mean, in 7 years, an 870 career OPS with the Dodgers, and in 3 years in Texas, an 874 OPS. The slugging has been higher in Texas. On base was a little bit higher with the Dodgers. A lot of that was due to his terrible on base his first year at 317. Just really not what Corey Seager was looking for. Still mashing the home runs, but once that shift got banned, I knew that it was going to unlock a new version of Corey Seager, but I didn't realize it would be, this dominant, this exceptional. I mean, even in his shortened seasons, even in the years where he went off pretty well, he never got close to what he did in 2023. I mean, even in that rookie season, an 877 OPS, his highest OPS for a season was 2020, a 943 OPS, and he was 70 points higher than that in what was mostly a full season last year, where he finished second in MVP voting and won a World Series MVP, his second ever, and he is still looking for yet another one, but probably not going to get it this year. But I am just so in awe of what Corey Seager has been for the Rangers, and heck, what Marcus Semien has been. I mean, still not a great year for Marcus, but he's at a 3.9 baseball reference WAR this year. 3.9. And you may remember the also equally horrible first season in Texas. Well, by the way, he had a 4.5 WAR season, a 5.5 WAR season that year. It had been so long since the Texas Rangers had a position player have a 5.5 WAR season. And he did that in his down year, in year one. This year, he might get to a 5 WAR season, but still, last year, 7.4 baseball reference WAR, the highest in the American League, third in MVP voting, an all-star, a gold glover, a silver slugger, not a gold glover somehow. Probably will win that this year, though. He has been maybe the best defensive player in baseball this year, which has really helped carry that WAR with his offense being down, but he's still above league average as a hitter. It's just offense has been so far down. And I just don't think it can be overstated how important it was that the Rangers hit on those two big free agent signings. How smart it was to go out and get those specific guys when there were plenty of other guys on the market, plenty of other big bats that were going to be free agents, in the last couple of years, where the Rangers were thinking about slowly building to contention. And the way that they absolutely nailed those signings, it just cannot be overstated. And it is the reason they won a World Series and the reason they had expectations this year and will have expectations next year and hopefully the year after that. And I can't believe that I was arguing with somebody on Twitter about Marcus Semien not living up to his contract. He's making $26 million this year. $26 million. That is not some huge overpay. I just talked about how amazing his first season was here, and he wasn't even that great. I mean, the first 6 weeks of him being here, he was an absolute offensive black hole. And, well, he took a day off and then was pretty much awesome ever since then. And he's been pretty good for most of this year. And there was that down spell back in May where the entire offense was having just a horrid down spell. Wasn't super great in June, but, made the All-Star team because he had a great first month of the season, something he doesn't often do. But I feel like it's being lost because the Rangers season is pretty much lost how good these guys have been. I mean, last night in that game, those two were combined 4 for 7 with a couple of home runs, 3 of the 4 runs scored, a walk, which was intentional because the rest of this offense was a combined 1 for 22 with 10 strikeouts. Against the freaking Pirates. Against Dennis Santana and Jalen Beeks. I mean, this offense just could not do much of anything without Corey Seager and Marcus Semien. And without those two guys, I shudder to think how far in the can this Rangers team would be. I mean, right now they are 58 and 68, which is 2 losses worse than the Pirates, who are in 5th place in the NL Central. A division that last year was pretty universally considered, if not the worst, then the second worst in all of baseball, and was probably going to be that, or was assumed to be that this year. And turns out, well, the AL West might be the worst division in all of baseball this year, which is not something that any of us saw coming. But I just feel like appreciating Corey Seager's greatness when he has a game like this, it is absolutely essential and nice to remember that even when things aren't going right, heck, at least we can watch Corey Seager mash some baseballs. But speaking of big name free agents the Rangers signed, the Rangers got some good news on Jacob deGrom and maybe some good news on Max Scherzer as well. We're talking about that, when we're going to see them, and if you could actually go out and watch them if you live in DFW. Right after this word from our sponsors. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Because now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5, get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday out-of-market game. All you need is Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel any time. You can also go over to FanDuel, check out some of the odds they've got right now. AL MVP, not a particularly close race. Aaron Judge is kind of running away with it at minus 1450. But if you're thinking that Bobby Witt Jr. is going to go on a run towards the end of the year, right now, second favorite at plus 600. AL Rookie of the Year, unfortunately, White Langford no longer in the top 6 of voting odds, but right now Colton Cowser of the Baltimore Orioles is the favorite at minus 260. So go head over to fanduel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Shout out to the Everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. Tonight, the Rangers take on the Pirates, 7:05 Central Time, first pitch. Cody Bradford versus Mitch Keller, and you can catch every pitch of the hometown broadcast on SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search Rangers. Now, the Rangers' rotation has not been what they were hoping for this season. They have not quite gotten as much as they wanted out of Max Scherzer, and they are still getting some good news about Jacob deGrom. Some very, very good news this week that if you live in DFW, or heck, even if you don't, you will still be able to see Jacob deGrom on a mound throwing some baseballs for the Frisco Rough Riders on Thursday. I am so freaking excited to finally see Jacob deGrom throwing again in a Texas Rangers uniform in a baseball game against real baseball opponents, not just a bullpen, but an actual game. I absolutely cannot freaking wait. I mean, the most fun I've ever had watching a pitcher in Frisco, well, maybe it was Kumar Rocker last week. Probably not. I was probably watching Yu Darvish on a rehab assignment back at the peak of his powers, looking just absolutely nasty. I remember he threw a 98-mile-an-hour fastball and then followed it up with that big old eephus that he threw it in the 60 to 50-mile-per-hour range and just made that poor Double-A hitter look quite terrible. And I anticipate Jacob deGrom doing similar things. And just watching him on a mound is going to be so exhilarating, so exciting, so much fun. I don't know when his next rehab outing will be after that, but he is going to have 4 rehab outings. First rehab outing will be on Thursday in Frisco, throwing 2 innings, hopefully around 30 pitches is the estimate for how many he's going to throw. Then the next one, he will add an inning and about 15 pitches, and then another one, and then another one, until he is built up for around 5 innings or 75 pitches, at which point he will make his major league debut for the season, which is hopefully going to be around September 10th or 11th. Finally, some concrete numbers, some actual dates, some actual timelines. We are getting closer to seeing Jacob deGrom on the hill. And for those who were even joking around saying, oh, just shut deGrom down for the season, the season's over, why even bother, blah, 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 blah. Well, you don't shut a guy down in the middle of the rehab process. Part of the rehab process is getting back up to the big leagues, throwing some games, looking healthy, and at this point, if he got back right around then, I think he'd be slated in for 3 to 4 starts this season. So he heads into the offseason just like normal, comes into camp next year, and then we can do the whole song and dance of can we get Jacob deGrom fully built up, fully healthy for the start of 2025, and then have some hope and expectations for maybe, once again, tricking ourselves into thinking the Rangers will finally have their first ever Cy Young winner in their franchise's history. Hoping so. Really hoping so. Maybe getting a little bullish on 2025 when this season has not necessarily lent itself to that many expectations. But last night, speaking of Rangers pitcher injury news, they took out Dane Dunning after just, I believe, 4 innings of his start last night. The velocity was dropping a lot on his slider, normally in the low 80s mark, but it was sitting in the upper 70s, which did give it some extra break. But also on the one pitch that he really just grooved was a 3-run homer, got the Pirates back into this game, but thankfully their offense couldn't do much of anything for the rest of this game. Jose Urena comes in, deals 4 innings of shutout baseball, very, very needed. So you only use Kirby Yates in the back end of your pen in a 1-run win. That was nice, but they took him out. They took Dane Dunning out because of his velocity drop. Bruce Bochy said they think it's nothing, so hopefully he's not going to have to go on the IL. But again, at this point, it's kind of like what's one more pitcher on the IL? I mean, what's one more guy getting hurt? As long as it's not Eovaldi. I mean, I'm not hoping for any injuries, but at this point, it's like, there's nothing left to fight for. The season's done. There's not, as long as you're not, trying to throw guys, too much or, pushing guys over innings limits, then just eat the innings however you can through the rest of this season. Hopefully get your guys back healthy, at least the guys that are coming back for next year, get them into the offseason feeling good about themselves, feeling good about what's happening in 2025. But speaking of guys who are on the IL, Max Scherzer is also going to throw this week in Frisco. It's going to be on Friday. So the starting lineup, or the starting rotation for the Frisco Rough Riders tonight, not exactly sure who they're throwing on the hill, but Wednesday, Kumar Rocker. Thursday is going to be Jacob deGrom, and then I believe it's going to be a Mitch Bratt piggyback after that. And then Friday, it's going to be Max Scherzer, and then if the rotation's holding up, then Winston Santos will be on the back half of Scherzer's piggyback start on Friday. So that is going to be a lot of fun to watch in Frisco this week. I know it's going to be 100 bajillion degrees, but that is my favorite time to be out there, when there's no one else out there. There's just scouts just there for the baseball, talking baseball with whoever happens to be out there, and I am very much looking forward to that. But the Rangers also got some news about Jon Gray. They are hoping to have him activated for tonight's game, which means that he could possibly be the starter on Wednesday. It is still a thrilling starting pitching matchup on Wednesday's game of TBD versus TBD. The Pirates' TBD is a little bit more exciting, and the old youngster from LSU, Paul Skeens, could be starting in that game, or they could push him back another start. Honestly, I would like to see him pitch against the Rangers because, well, he's probably going to look pretty darn good, and it's just fun to watch Paul Skeens start. And it might be Jon Gray on Wednesday, though I am just speculating at this point, since Cody Bradford is starting on Tuesday, Dane Dunning started on Monday, and Urena was used for 4 innings also on Monday. I don't believe Jose Urena is sticking in this rotation. They're probably hoping that Jon Gray is ready for Wednesday, and then finally having a day off on Thursday after what has been an absolutely brutal run since the start of this no days off after the rain out that caused the doubleheader back in New York. The Rangers very much need that off day, and we'll see what they get out of Jon Gray if he starts on Wednesday. If they activate him on Tuesday, which if they're activating him on Tuesday, that means he's probably not starting on Wednesday. So I don't really know exactly what's going on there, but I do know that we finally have a date for Jacob deGrom to be on a mound throwing baseballs. I will almost certainly be out there in Frisco on Thursday and Wednesday as well after the Rangers day game. But I want to talk about the money allocation of this team and some questions about a certain column about Leody Taveras being the Rangers' biggest question mark? I think not. I'm going to talk about why right after this word from our sponsors. This show is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. With over 5 million active members, PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Because unlike other apps, on PrizePicks it is just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the PrizePicks community today. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. Sign up today and you'll get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus because it's guaranteed. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks. Run your game. Now, the Rangers have had a lot of problems this year. They have a lot of questions heading into next year. But after a column I read this morning from Evan Grant of the Dallas Morning News saying that Leody Taveras was their biggest riddle, their biggest mystery, their biggest problem to solve this offseason, I had to scratch my head. I mean, there is definitely a lot bigger mysteries to solve in the Rangers offseason than Leody Taveras. There's been a lot of hate on Leody this year, and, well, I can't say he hasn't totally earned it. But I feel like it's been absolutely disproportionate to the amount of ire and frustration that your 9th best position player should be getting. Maybe 10th best position player, depending on how things are shaping up elsewhere. But still, Leody Taveras is making $2.3 million, or $2.6 million this year. And overall, he's not been that great. He's been about a 1-ish WAR player, which is not great, but when it's your 9th best hitter, your 9-hole hitter, your guy who is there to provide defense, which at times his defense can be brilliant, beautiful, wonderful to watch, and at times his defense can be really, truly just head-scratchingly dumb. Same with some of his base running errors. Same with his bat. He is just probably the most hot and cold player I think I might have ever truly scrutinized, because he'll go on a 6-week stretch where he'll just be on another level. I mean, offensively, defensively, he will just look absolutely sensational, like an all-star. I mean, he should have been an all-star in the first half of last season. He should have. And then after that, he was, well, less spectacular, which we saw a bit of this year. I mean, he had his moments. He's hopefully getting close to being on another heater right now, but he will have 6-week stretches where he looks incredible and 6-week stretches where he looks awful. But when you're constructing a baseball team and when you have an owner that for a hot minute I thought might be one of the ones that was going to spend money on a good baseball team to keep it being a good baseball team, but it's looking like he is, well, more like every other owner and trying to penny pitch, and despite being in a big market and despite coming off a World Series, being hesitant about the luxury tax, every dollar counts. And so you have to look at the production per dollar. And, well, Leody Taveras might make around $4 million next year. You look around at what a center fielder costs. Heck, at what an outfielder costs. And if you're getting 1 to 2 WAR from Leody, say he bounces back and is closer to the 2.5 WAR player he was last year, for $4 million, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. I mean, looking at the contracts of some of the guys who are playing center field that are playing much, much worse than him, I mean, heck, Trent Grisham is making $5.5 million this year. He has been quite terrible. Kevin Kiermaier is making $10.5 million this year. He's not been great. Harrison Bader has been fine. $10.5 million. Starling Marte, nearly $21 million. A guy who I've never heard of, Vance Honeycutt, is making $4 million to play center field, allegedly, for the Baltimore Orioles this year. I don't know where that came from. But still, right now he is the 19th highest paid center fielder in Major League Baseball. behind guys like that. He is not the problem. He's not been great. And if he's bad, if he's terrible, you do have some other options, but there's not a whole lot that's really quite the value of Leody Taveras. See, that's the biggest problem with complaining about a player on your team and saying, ugh, they need to cut this guy. Ugh, they need to send this guy to the minors. Oh, they need to just get rid of this guy. The immediate question after that is always, okay, for who? Who are you getting rid of this guy for? Because someone has got to play that position. Someone's got to be whatever position of whatever you're mad at this year, whether it's right field and Adolis Garcia, whether it's catcher and Jonah Heim, whether it's center field and Leody, someone's got to play that position next year. And in terms of value, you got to be real smart and sometimes real lucky to be able to get that kind of value. So at center field, your options are, well, Wyatt Langford, who, love him, but has not been great this year, has fewer home runs this year than Leody Taveras, has a higher strikeout rate this year than Leody Taveras, and defensively, even despite Leody's occasional completely head-scratching routes and throws and whatever in center field, still Leody has a pretty clear sizable advantage over Wyatt in center field. Now eventually maybe Wyatt closes that gap, but for right now, it's not quite there. Are you banking on Evan Carter staying healthy for a full season? I am really genuinely concerned about that and his future and his back. And I'm concerned about pretty much everything with Evan Carter right now. That's not something you can just bank on and just circle in and pencil in there for, oh, yep, that's definitely an upgrade over Leody Taveras. Or are you banking on Ezekiel Duran or Josh Smith holding down either center field or left field with whoever, Wyatt or Evan, playing every day in center? Or are you thinking, let's go to the free agent market? Well, the free agent market's freaking expensive. Teams averaged $4.4 million per one WAR in free agency last year. That's for one. Leody's about at one. He's making $2.7 million this year. 2.6, excuse me. You know who else is making a decent chunk of change and being absolutely terrible this year? Well, Andrew Kisner got $1.3 million this offseason. Travis Jankowski, $1.7 million. The $900K difference between Jankowski and Leody Taveras. And Jankowski has somehow 68 plate appearances at DH this year and a .499 OPS in his 162 plate appearances this year. .499 OPS. As a guy who's playing 79 games, might end up playing 80 games. Half your season. Given to that. I mean, the real question with this money, the real money pinching kerfuffle and frustration of this year is that your three best pre-arbitration guys, you wasted a pre-arbitration year of them to get virtually nothing out of them. Now, those three are Wyatt Langford, Evan Carter, and Josh Young. Josh Young might play 70 games this year. Maybe. You got 45 out of Evan Carter. You're going to get maybe 130, 140 out of Wyatt Langford. Maybe a 1.5 if he does really, really well down the stretch. A 2 WAR season out of Wyatt. Right now he's at 1.0 baseball reference WAR. So doubling his season total in the next 40 games is possible, but probably not likely. And those are three key guys. And you only have 3 years of pre-arb from all of them. And you just spent one of them on this. Now, if they knew Wyatt Langford was going to be about this level of ready, then this is probably not how they'd spend his season. But that's definitely more of a problem than Leody Taveras not being great in his $2.6 million this year. I mean, you look at the guys who in free agency, I mean, it's more of a question of what the heck's going to happen with Adolis Garcia next year. Because if he's this bad defensively and offensively next year, him making $9 million and being that level of not great, especially if you're getting this level of production from Wyatt Langford, which I don't expect. I think he's going to get better. If you're getting this level of production from Evan Carter, which I'm hoping he's much healthier and better when he's on the field next year, but you look at some of the guys in free agency who the Rangers were going to spend money, which I don't think they are. Here's what the outfielders look like. I mean, Tyler O'Neill, 3 years, $49 million. That's $16 million a year. Anthony Santander, projected 5 years, $90 million. That's $18 million a year. Heck, Teoscar Hernandez, 3 years, $73 million. $24 million a year. Heck, if you wanted to go the cheap route and say, okay, Harrison Bader's fine, that's $7 million for a center fielder who I don't think is going to be that much better than Leote next year. And he definitely doesn't have the upside potential of Leote. So when you're getting frustrated with that, I mean, that's just kind of how this season goes. That's where they are this year. And Leote Taveras, while he is a problem, definitely by far not their biggest problem or even their biggest question mark. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy World Series champion Texas Rangers baseball.